In a past debate with a trans man, the concept of emotional intelligence came up, and I said it doesn't exist. I rejected the concept out of hand. Right. Now, Mr. Pink and Yellow and Shield for Men came to me and said, look, I think it's real, and we want the, to support the truth. We put truth before ideology, but it never sat right with me, right? And so I started looking to see if it's true or not. Now, I decided to type in what are the types of intelligence? Now, see the various types, there's the ending of it. What's missing? Emotional intelligence. It's not there. You have to actually type it in and ask about it before it shows up. There's linguistic, verbal intelligence, logic, mathematical, spatial, visual, music and rhythm, right? Body. Let's see, the closest you can get is intrapersonal intelligence and interpersonal intelligence. Why aren't they using those terms? Because these terms are too specific. You can measure them, and you could see how men and women stack up. Okay, that's why. It's an emotional intelligence is a nebulous term. Matter of fact, there are criticisms of it. Critique of emotional intelligence, mainly the lack of consistent and scientifically valid definition. With the critics arguing that AI is not a distinct form of intelligence, but rather a rebranding of established concepts like personality traits, general intelligence, and self-regulation. Right, right. Now, the trouble is the guy who came up with this idea is, let's see, what's his name? Daniel Coleman. He wanted to study the brain through the humanities, right? He was determined to study the brain, but grounded in the humanities, which often are pseudoscience. He wanted to approach the study through more than science. No, less than science. That's why. Certain that the brain was more complicated. No, he didn't want to bother with the science. That was too rigorous. He wanted to approach it through the humanities. Now, Mr. Pink and Yellow and Shield for Men will agree that psychology is a pseudoscience. So a man who approaches emotional intelligence through a pseudoscience, through the humanities, should be taken with a grain of salt at the very best. Okay. Now, oh yeah, here's another one. Emotional intelligence is bogus. Here's why. By Tim Casas, let's see, Casasola, right? Oops. Okay. Back. Now. Now, he talks about this, but he says, here's one big problem with emotional intelligence. Nobody knows what the hell it is, right? So I'll include these in the description box. Now that you know this, we'll get into the story by Luke Goblin, right? And he'll tell this story about uh, this young lady who was a man hater, right? And she invited this man to join the her circle herself just to abuse him, right?
Two updates actually for today's treasure. The first one being called "I'm pretty sure my wife's Dungeon Master hates me" update. I'll try to make this much shorter than my last ramble. New update. Apparently the players found the thread and confronted the Dungeon Master about this. They started messaging me and my wife for our side and confronted the Dungeon Master. It looks like the Dungeon Master is taking a break now from all the drama we caused.
So she's a man hater and she's been exposed. And so she's running away. By the way, what pisses me off about these stories, if you listen to enough of these stories, when the women are assholes like this, they aren't ostracized like the men. When the men show evil like this, they get booted out. The women, they run away. They don't get booted out anyway. And of course, they are causing the drama, even though she knows she's the source of it.
So a few things I want to clear up about this situation that I had many people asking me. We were part of 4 tables previously. The first one was a group of college mates we had together that we...
Can I say something before it goes on? The best dungeon players are boys in their tweens. You get a 10, 11, 12-year-old boy playing this game, 13, 14 at the latest, you get the best games. Adults are useless for this game, especially mixed sexes. They're the worst.
thoroughly enjoyed, but it ended about 3 months in as the Dungeon Master was going through a divorce and never picked it up again. After that,
Wow, was it she who was doing it? I'm a bit confused over this. So I better not go any further if I'm not sure. I'm guessing, was she getting divorced, right? Might have added to the hatred.
we had bad luck finding good tables. The first one, the Dungeon Master was a very rules as written player and skipped all roleplay. Nothing wrong with that, but we found out that it wasn't necessarily what we were looking for. The other tables had some problem players whom the Dungeon Master didn't do anything about, so we left as it would kill the jive of all the other players around. My wife found this group on D&D Beyond. It was advertised as a novice Dungeon Master looking for players, and not as an all-girls table. It just so happened that all the ones who contacted her were women. She had been telling me about her sessions
Yeah, women want other women around. Right.
pretty much from day one, as she was super excited to have found a table that worked for her. I stopped searching and did mostly solo as my new hobby, but I loved hearing about her adventures with other people. She told
Notice the husband doesn't care about the wife having a hobby on her own. Right. So this is typical for men. They'll turn around and the wife says, "Oh, I want to do this on my own." They want all women. Is that okay? And the guy always says, "Yeah, yeah, I love you. I want the best for you. So you go and enjoy yourself." The wives aren't very much like that. What do you mean? You're going to join an all-male group who wants to exclude us women? Who are you, peasants, to exclude us?
her group that she'd tell me about these adventures and how excited I was. The Dungeon Master then extended an invitation to me to watch them via my wife, and I could sit in their Discord. I personally asked her permission and the group's permission if I could. I was fully intending to give them space if even one of them said no. They all
Now that's interesting, right? So even one of them, you see, women wouldn't put up with that either. If she had one guy say, "I don't want any women around," and all the other guys agreed, she would try and ostracize him. Or she, at the very least, join the group and just ignore him. So these guys, the average guys are lay down guys. This is what pisses me off about these D&D stories. One woman out of like 5 decided, I'd be like, "No, fuck you. The other women like me. You're going to have to suffer."
agreed, and I sat in for the last 3 months of their session. We had all gotten along pretty well. At the end of the campaign, the Dungeon Master told me that they were going to start a new one in a few months after that ended, and asked if I wanted to make a character. I was excited to join since they all seemed really chill, and I asked if it was
The DM is asking him, right?
okay with the group. Everyone agreed and were very welcoming. I came to the Dungeon Master with a different storyline than what we decided on. She liked my
Oh, by the way, they were probably welcoming because of his wife. They wanted to be friends with his wife. They don't give a shit about him.
idea, but wanted to add the little flavor with the scenario between the gods of that world, saying that it fit a vision that she had for the story. She didn't tell me what that vision was, but from what I saw, she was a great storyteller, and I'm very flexible and can play into whatever she drums up for me. I did not know that this vision would then have me out of the game for almost all the social roleplay stuff. Sure, the character came in handy for mechanics and during fights, but any kind of roleplay with NPCs or main story plot was non-existent. It was
So see what she's doing? She's including him so she can exclude him.
wasn't always bad, just during big roleplay moments and some strange roles that I had to make, but there were moments that I had fun. It just wasn't the majority of it. I stuck through because my wife enjoyed me playing with her, and the group always seemed outwardly friendly. I was really trying to give it a shot. I'm really
So this guy's willing to sacrifice enjoyment to make his wife happy. This is so typical.
Happy to see early on in the update, I get a piece of information that I wasn't too sure about in the story and I was seeing a lot in my own comment section. Based on what I'm reading here, it appears that the whole cursed bloodline thing was not initially what he came up with in the story, and this is something that she wanted implemented for the sake of drama. There were people, and appropriately so, in my comment section saying, hey, if he brought up a cursed bloodline thing, he can't be too surprised when people are treating him awfully. But if it's actually true here that the Dungeon Master was the one that really wanted that conflict with the gods to happen, then a lot of the conflict that he was dealing with really isn't something that he signed up for.
Yeah, exactly. She invited this guy and set things up so he'll get abused. That's something male dungeon masters never do with women, even the so-called misogynists who don't like women. If a guy doesn't like a woman, he just doesn't invite her, does he?
Fortunately, it is somewhat common that there is a person that sticks around in these RPG horror stories because someone they know that's close to them is still having fun, so they're trying to stick it out and be a good friend, or in this case, a good husband. And he did try to bow out, and they kept saying, no, no.
Good husband means good servant, Lute. I want you to know that. I'm a good little servant.
Oh, you can't, your character is super important. So he did try to remove himself from the situation. So yeah, it was definitely a hard situation. Let's see what happens in the rest of this update. I talked it over with my wife and she understood how I felt. She admitted she was in a hard place because she loved this group so much and it was the first time she felt like she could express herself, but also playing a game with me that was reminiscent of our first group. She agreed that we
So she likes her first group, but she doesn't feel like she could express herself in the first group? Right.
should have a one-on-one video chat with the Dungeon Master privately and discuss any possible ways to make this fun for all of us.
Oh, by the way, I believe this story is 100% true. It's just too complex and too creative to be a lie.
Even said that if she was going to play a certain way plot-wise, to give me some info and I can play into it. What I basically got was, I'm sorry you feel that way and can't handle some confrontation within the game. My wife explained that confrontation is one thing, but I wasn't given a fair shot to prove myself. She, Dungeon Master, was not
So the Dungeon Master was gaslighting him, right? I'm sorry you feel that way and can't handle the abuse I'm throwing you.
happy and said if I didn't want to play in her game, I can hang out with the boys and do my own thing. Right then and there, I got my answer and politely said she's right. I thanked her for her time and said that I'd be leaving. I told her she had full access to my character and whatever plan she wanted for her, and she thanked me before we ended the call. Shortly after,
So there you go. See, so he says, oh, you don't want me here? No problem. See you around. It's not the guy causing the drama, is it? Right?
she kicked my wife and I out of the Discord and blocked us. I feel bad for my wife because she was honestly hurt, but she said she stands by my decision. This happened Wednesday after our game and my heart broke.
Oh, even though he just politely said, okay, you could do what you like, see you around. She kicked him out of the Discord. I suspect the wife kept supporting him and saying, what are you doing? So she finally booted her out too. Right.
Breaks because I know she's hurt, but I told her that she could take that same character and we could play a solo D&D session together. This was unfortunately a step that needed to be taken. Obviously, he wasn't having fun. He wanted to quit. The Dungeon Master kind of made it an either-or situation by saying, no, you can't.
She didn't kinda, she did. Loot Goblin. Man, these guys are such laydowns.
Can't leave. It's really important to the plot and your wife's character. And truth be told, whenever I've seen an RPG horror story where there's two individuals that have an existing relationship and one of them sours against the Dungeon Master and is kicked, I don't think I ever see the other person able to stay around. So I guess it was just kind of nice to get it over with because it's something that was hanging over their head session after session. This would be a really sad ending if this is.
I'm kind of surprised his wife left, to be honest. A lot of women would say, oh, well, I prefer my girlfriends over that servant of mine.
That's how the story concluded, but there is one more update. The final treasure for today goes by the name Wife's Dungeon Master Definitely Hates Me. Final update. It's been a long and tiring week, but finally we have a resolution to all this mess. First of all, though all of this was unfortunate,
You ever notice these grown men who deal with women in D&D? It's always a tiring week. Just pay attention to these. Dudes, why deal with women at all and make your hobbies work instead of fun?
do not blame anyone for wanting or needing a woman's only space. I have made
You see, this is groveling. When I say it, I say it with the understanding that I believe men should have their own space. I bet this loser would probably say, no, you guys can't have your own space. That's only for women.
it abundantly clear that I would not have joined if even one of them spoke up about being uncomfortable with me being there. I respect it, and if that was the main case, like I truly believe
You see, he respects it. No, I don't respect that. If only one person spoke up, I'd still join. I said, screw that asshole.
it was, I would have been perfectly fine declining if the Dungeon Master had messaged me and told me she did not want me to join. This was a lot of the players' first group with D&D, and so they admitted that they didn't know that I was being treated unfairly.
Now, there you go. This is why I brought this up. Women have emotional intelligence, but they didn't know I was being treated unfairly. Why? They didn't pay attention to the game. Now, Mr. Pink and Yellow and I were talking about this, and he said, well, maybe they knew and they just didn't want to admit it. I said, now, it is possible, but I use Occam's razors. If you hear hoofbeats, you assume they're horses, not zebras. No, women just lack the emotional intelligence they claim to have.
But that they had thought I was just unlucky with the mechanics. They also said that they were so used to their group dynamic that it was easy to get tunnel vision when it came to including me in the story, and that
They get tunnel, really? I thought your great female emotional intelligence would tell you otherwise. You just look at it and say, I'm such a genius, and see what's going on.
they hadn't thought anything about it. To be fair, I don't blame this on them completely. I've never played with one group for 4 years straight, but I can assume that you're so used to your dynamic, so when it
Yeah, well, you're a groveling dude. To be fair, I wouldn't blame them completely. I would put some blame on them. Yeah. You saw me being abused and you were okay with it. Or you were unaware of it because you didn't care about me as a person.
switches up and someone else joins, it could be easy to tune them out, especially when I was having to sit out because the story revolved around them. At first, some of them thought I didn't give the Dungeon Master a fair chance to give me a story. The woman who played the orc said that the Dungeon Master also changed her background so that her character was raised by occultists rather than by the monastery idea she had at first. She said she enjoyed the new direction and opened up a lot more angst for her character later. We had a bit of a debate about this, but ultimately they agreed that if I myself wasn't having fun with it, that I should be able to change the story or be allowed to leave. I also asked the group about the reasoning for letting me join. I read a lot of comments here suggesting that my wife may have asked the Dungeon Master, or that the Dungeon Master felt pressured, and I wanted to better understand if she felt like she had to take me, and despite how she felt.
This is more groveling. That doesn't explain how she changed the game around to bash him, though.
Told that when my wife told the group that she told me about their adventures and the compliments I gave, everyone, including the Dungeon Master, was excited to hear that an outsider was invested in their campaign.
And she knows the outsider is male. She's excited about it. Why was she excited about it? Because she was rubbing her hands and saying, I get to see this man suffer.
Dungeon Master asked if I wanted to sit in and watch, and then when the new campaign started, asked my wife in the group if I would be interested in joining. I was told that in their private chats, she'd make the occasional out-of-pocket comments like, let's show them how it's done, and I thought guys were supposed to be good at D&D.
Wow, that's quite emotional intelligence, guys. They're so emotionally tuned to other people, they could hear bigoted statements like this and not get it.
I'd struggle in combat due to some of the extra difficulties placed against me. In the end, the Dungeon Master got mad after being confronted, disbanded the channel, and everyone got blocked, so now they're asking me if I can run something for them.
She dumped them all. You know why? Because she's female and she knows she can just join another group just like that. Men are desperate when they get ostracized. They don't want to because they know that they have to struggle to get into another group.
I personally am going to take a nice, long, needed break from this whole thing, but I won't be opposed to possibly doing something they can enjoy.
In other words, he's going to dust himself off and recover and get back in the saddle.
Enjoy in the future. Hopefully I can exceed their expectations.
Dude, you really haven't learned anything. I'd be just telling my wife, I said, lady, you're on your own. I am going to find a all men's group to play in. Because if one guy's an asshole, people tell him so, and they make him smarten up. So that's what I have to say about this. And in most this is I was watching this, listening to this, and that's what got me to thinking about the emotional intelligence and saying, no, no, where is it? Where is it? Right here. It's bullshit. It's a lack of consistent and scientifically valid definitions. It's bullshit. It was made up by some guy who, let's face it, wanted to write a book like Eric Shigler. I'll give him credit here. He said, nope, this guy's just a grifter who wrote a book in 1995, the emotional intelligence that basically shines women's egos and say you're better than men, and it took off then. So I think it's safe, guys, for us to dump this nonsensical conception, this idea of emotional intelligence. It doesn't exist. And if it did exist, how come it's not listed? Right. That ends that.